All right, so we've built a couple of small projects on our local machine. Now I want to start looking at how to actually get a website online. And we talked a little bit about this in the beginning of the course. You're usually going to register a domain name and then buy some kind of hosting account, although many hosting accounts do include a free domain name. So in this video, I just want to go over the different types of hosting there are, as well as the pricing points. So these are the most common types of hosting. We have shared hosting, VPS, which is a virtual private server, dedicated server, reseller hosting, cloud hosting, and static hosting. So we're going to go over each of these and talk about what they are. So aside from free tiers of static hosting, which I'll get to in a bit, shared hosting is definitely the cheapest, ranging from around $3 to $15 per month, although a lot of the times you'll have to pay by the year, so it'll be around $70, $70 to $100 a year, which isn't bad. And shared hosting means that you get one of many accounts on the same server and on the same operating system environment. And this is suitable for most small websites, so anything that we build in this course would be just fine on a shared host in terms of data and size. However, they usually restrict bandwidth, so if you have a site where you're expecting, tens of thousands of users every day, it's probably not the best thing. You probably want to go with something of a higher tier. But if it's some local business like a flower shop or something like that, in most cases it's going to be fine. I built websites for local businesses for a long time, and I would say 90% of them used a shared web host. So this is definitely where you're going to want to start. I should say probably where you're going to start, or maybe static hosting, which I'll get to in a little bit. And this is what we'll be doing in this section. We're going to set up a shared host account with InMotion, which is a great service, great company that I've used for years. Now, most of these types of accounts are managed, and they include email servers, so you'll be able to set up your email with your domain name. You get a control panel to view analytics, create FTP accounts so you can upload files. You can even create databases. A lot of them come with one-click installs for things like WordPress. So shared hosting is great for small local businesses, and like I said, I suggest InMotion, but there's also HostGator, Bluehost. These are some other companies that I've worked with that are really good as well. All right, so next up we have VPS, or Virtual Private Server, and this is a step up from shared hosting. You're going to get it's basically an account that's on a physical machine, but it's a virtualized environment. Okay, so with shared hosting, you have the same environment, you just have different accounts. On a VPS, you have less people on the same server, and they're all their own environment, so it's more secure. It's less prone to issues from other accounts, things like that. You also get much more access. With a shared account, you usually can't log in through SSH or through the shell as a root user, and with a VPS, you have much more control. You can log in as root, you can install things, and these usually range from about $20 to $100 per month. And obviously different packages have different disk space and bandwidth restrictions, just like a shared host. A VPS is great if you plan on having more than one website. You can actually create your own smaller shared accounts with their own separate control panels, and you could even sell shared accounts, but a reseller is better for that, which I'll talk about next. So a reseller account is very similar to a VPS, except it's more geared towards reselling shared hosting to third parties. So you'll basically get a panel where you can create and terminate shared accounts, and you can sell those to users on your website. And most reseller packages come bundled with a piece of software called WHCMS, which is used for billing. You can actually make it so when a user pays through the system, which you can integrate into your website, a new account gets set up on your reseller server. Okay, and then they'll get sent an email and they'll be able to log in and all this. I actually did this for about 3 or 4 years when I had my web dev company, but I wouldn't suggest doing it unless you really know what you're doing. You need to really know about things like DNS and DevOps and stuff like that. All right, so a dedicated server is an actual physical machine sitting in a data center that you rent out. So as opposed to just basically having an account on a server with other people, you actually not own but rent the machine. And these are definitely the most expensive. They range anywhere from 100, which is very, very cheap. You're lucky to find a dedicated server for $100, to 400 and even more than that. Now, these are great for large sites and applications that are going to have tons of users. You get full freedom. You can usually install whatever operating system you want, stuff like that. Most likely Linux. Linux rules the hosting world, so most of the time your servers will run Linux, some distribution of Linux. The downside is they're much harder to manage, and in most cases you'll probably have like a designated DevOps person on a team managing a dedicated server. All right, so next is cloud hosting, and this is more for web applications, more so than just static websites. So if you build something like a social network or an e-commerce site using a language like Python, PHP, or something like Node.js, cloud hosting is great for that. It's basically having multiple servers working together, and it's extremely powerful and scalable. DigitalOcean is one of my favorite providers for this. The downside is you have to know a lot to manage cloud hosting. You need to know a bunch of Linux terminal commands. You need to know how to set up things like Nginx servers, firewalls, and it gets really, really advanced and way beyond what we're doing in this course. All right, so lastly we have static hosting, which is fairly new, and a good example of this is Netlify and GitHub Pages. We're actually going to be deploying to Netlify a little later, which is a fantastic service. They offer hosting, but they also have additional features like serverless functions if you want to add some dynamic functionality, and also contact form submission, which is really cool. And they're used for both front-end applications and static websites, including sites that want to have back-end services. Netlify and GitHub Pages both have free tiers, so if you just want to host your site without having the bells and whistles of a control panel, email and all that, you can do that for free. But if you could still have email on that domain. You'll just most likely have to have it connected to some other service, some kind of email service. Now, you will need to know at least the basics of Git, which is a version control system to deploy to either Netlify or GitHub Pages. But we're going to do that later. I'm going to teach you some of the basic commands, and it's really not that difficult. All right, so for now what we're going to do is jump in and we're going to upload our Edge Ledger website to InMotion Hosting to a shared account. And it'll show you how to create FTP, how to upload your files, and all that good stuff.
Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Fuck me, I'm looking in the mirror, so foggy, but I've never seen clearer.